Carolina silhouette project, we're going to be working with stencils. Stencil is a very direct printing process. That means it's exactly what you see is what you get. It's not flipped. And we're going to be using temporary stencils, so that means that you're working with paper usually. If you're using a permanent stencil, you're going to want something that can be used over and over and over again. So to do this, the quickest way to do this is I'm just going to use the shape that's on the paper, and I'm going to do what's called a chalk transfer. So on the back, I'm going to put a little bit of chalk. I'll probably do this over here, covering the entire back. And then for the durable paper, I'm going to use some scrap watercolor paper. You could use a note card. And then tracing around the edge of the shape of North Carolina. A good question is, how many of the little things do you have to have for it to look like North Carolina? So once you press through on the front, then you should get a nice line on the back. Then working with your X-Acto blade, so ours come from NASCO, so they're not called X-Acto. That's a brand name like Kleenex. You got your sheath, which keeps it safe, and that's if you're walking around class, you want to make certain that you have that on. And the blade. At the end, it turns either clockwise or counterclockwise. Counterclockwise loosens the blade, so you always want to make sure it's turned clockwise, that means to the right, so that it's nice and tight in there. You should probably try a practice cut. What you want to do is you want to make sure that you're cutting away from your fingers. So if your blade is not very sharp, you can come see Miss Harkins or myself and we'll replace it. So the other thing is I'm not going straight up and down. You don't want your blade straight up and down. You want it more at a 45 to 30 degree angle. And you just carefully and slowly, you'll notice that I'm rotating the blade in my fingers, going around the shape of North Carolina. And that my finger that most likely to be cut is far away from the blade. You also notice I'm turning the paper and not letting, I'm not trying to force the blade to go in some weird direction like backwards across my body. I'm turning the paper so that the motion I'm making with the blade is easy for the blade and safe for my thumb. All right, so the outer banks are kind of going to be cut off here, but there we go. Once you've got your piece, you pop it right out. Don't throw away this part. Save it. I'll show you why in just a minute. When you're done with your blade, make sure your sheath is on and put it over to the side. Okay, so now we need to print. So there's two ways to do this. Like I said, it's a very direct printing process. So here we've removed or taken the shape out, so we've got the space in here, and we can print the state of North Carolina. I'm going to bring in just a sponge for quick and easy demonstration, and I'm going to sponge the positive. So this is making the shape of North Carolina by sponging it that way. But I could also create the shape using the negative. So this will mean the North Carolina is going to stay white, and the space around it will go, in this case, green. You could also use spray paint like Banksy and some other artists, and that way you end up with either a negative of the state of North Carolina or a positive using the simple stencil technique. Have fun, be safe, don't cut yourself.